The Oakville Blobs. My name is Bill. Welcome to the Night Terrors Weekend Show. And we're starting right now. My Banned by YouTube video series, which is right here, drops a new episode every Wednesday morning. Every subject covered in this series was banned by YouTube, so don't miss it. One way to support the channel is to join as a member on YouTube. You'll find the join button right next to the Night Terrors name in the description below. Thank you for supporting the show. Okay, T Plateau claims no YouTube. Let's find out. Did I not apply those settings? Excellent connection. I think we're good. I think we're good, people. Let me know, T Plateau, if it should be out there. I got an excellent connection now. Hello again, Rhino Rex. Please, people, we need some positive YouTube reports here. We should be broadcasting. I have frozen screen. You'll have to reload, Green Tea. We had to restart. It looks good here. Edit goal, end stream, excellent connection. We're looking good on YouTube as far as I can see. Channel content. Channel content live. Refresh. We're just going to take a look over at YouTube here. It says Oakville Blobs Live. It's unlisted. Oh no, let's change that. Public, we're going to start one more time, people. The Oakville Blobs. My name is Bill. Welcome to the Night Terrors Weekend Show. And we're starting right now. My Banned by YouTube video series drops an episode every Wednesday morning. Every subject covered in this series was banned by YouTube, so don't miss it. One way to support the channel is to join as a member on YouTube. You'll find the join button right next to Night Terrors in the description below. Thank you for supporting the show. All right, we're about 11 minutes after here. YT is on. Love to hear it. Let's get started. Here at historicmysteries.com is an article by Robbie Mitchell. The Mystery of the Oakville Blobs. And Robbie begins. In the summer of 1994, the residents of Oakville, Washington, woke up to find something strange indeed. In a city as prone to showers as Oakville people are used to, with its heavy rainfall, this was something very different. What they were not used to were gelatinous blobs that had fallen from the sky, coating everything in sight. From there, things only got weirder. I would say more weird, as people started getting ill and the government raced to try and explain away the phenomenon. The first person to experience the blobs was police officer David Lacey. Lacey was driving along with a friend when it began to rain. Nothing seemed amiss until he turned on his wipers and they failed to clear his windshield. Instead of a clear view, all Lacey got was a smear on the glass. Lacey pulled over at the next gas station and put on a pair of gloves. I'm going to have to take a second here, people, and reopen my live chat on YouTube. I think we're here. And here. Yes, oh, Elder, thank you for the super chat. Elder says, YouTube is go. Welcome to Green Tea. Welcome to David Bryce Jr. Let's pop this out. And let's make this nice and neat. Thank you. Can I get one over there? No, I can't. Let's try it again. Looks fairly good. Looks fairly good. Welcome to Casual Kitty. Eddie Haskell has arrived. My favorite character. Jacqueline 1 says good evening. I can't see anything earlier than that. Sorry, guys, I missed the chat. Tina T says, oh, Tina Tomaszewski is here. Welcome, Tina. Okay, let's get back to the story. The officer was not the only person to experience the strange substance. Soon other residents of Oakville, a former logging town, incorporated in 1905, were reporting the same weird precip. One woman stepped outside to enjoy the rain, only to find the strange blobs covering the ground. The blobs were about the size of a grain of rice. They were translucent. It's estimated over the next 3 weeks, the small town experienced blobs raining from the sky on 3 separate occasions. Sounds like military exercises. As Lacey put it, Elder, thank you for the link. We got that coming up, people. As Officer Lacey put it, when talking to Robert Stack of Unsolved Mysteries in '96. You know, you could pretty much squish it through your fingers. We knew it wasn't something we would normally see, because we never experienced it before. There were bells going off in our head. This isn't right. This isn't normal. Perhaps the locals were right to have been suspicious of the strange blobs. Within a day of coming into contact with them, locals began to fall ill. Lacey stated by the next day he had come down with fatigue and nausea. Another resident, Beverly Roberts, told a local newspaper that after taking some blobs home for a closer look, she became ill. She experienced peculiar symptoms such as vertigo, and she sought medical attention. Other residents experienced complaints such as upper respiratory infections, ear infections, and flu-like symptoms. These were severe enough that several residents collapsed, spending several days recuperating in the local hospital. What was bad for humans appears to have been even worse for the local animal population. Roberts said that at the time, she knew of at least 12 animals that had unalived after coming into contact with the sinister blobs. These included a frog and a raven that she found close to the blobs in her garden, and the kitten of a friend who lived on a farm. That first one, local doctor, Dr. David Little, didn't think much of the blobs. Initially put down his patient's infections as having nothing to do with the blobs. Yet as more of his patients complained of strange symptoms. Thank you, Elder, for the suggestion from Gaming Rhino Rex. And we got it. Welcome to Ryu 1972. He agreed to take the sample to the local hospital, and run tests on the strange goo. When put under a microscope, hospital technicians found the blobs contained human white blood cells, the cells the body uses to fight infection. Certainly strange, but nothing that would explain so many people falling ill. White blood cells and the blobs. Designed to infect? Samples were then sent to the Washington State Department of Health and the Department of Ecology. The health department found no white blood cells. Instead, they found 2 species of bacteria. There's been a lot of debate as to whether these bacteria could have caused the health problems. It's widely agreed that one of the bacteria is harmless. The other one is found in nature and can actually act as a pathogen. It's commonly found in the human gut and usually harmless. But in people with compromised immune system, certain strains have been known to cause urinary tract and respiratory infections. But even that is uncommon. And this was widespread. According to one microbiologist working there at the time, Mike McDowell, before any more tests could be run on the strange goo, the department's samples mysteriously disappeared. While this may sound mysterious, it must be stated McDowell's claims have never been backed up. Who else has to back them up? It's just as likely the samples were simply misplaced or accidentally disposed of. Yeah, right, you're going to throw away the doctor's samples. I don't think so. And if they were misplaced, they would eventually have been found, right? Over at the Department of Ecology, Mike Osweiler was also busy investigating the interesting phenomenon. He told the Seattle Post-Intelligencer that the blobs contained a number of cells of various sizes. He believed they had come from a dead creature. And that creature was not human. The cells had no nuclei. Therefore, they couldn't be human blood cells or of human origin at all. Unsurprisingly, these incredibly mixed results resulted in a whole host of theories as to what the blobs really were. An early theory were that they had come from jellyfish. Which T. Plateau already guessed. People argued that somehow the jellyfish had been swept up and then scattered across Oakville. Well, there have been raining frogs, real incidences of raining frogs, raining fish, real incidents. This was supposedly either by some natural event or something man-made. One theory was that the Air Force had been testing bombing practice runs and had blown the local jellyfish population clean out of the water. Because they love dropping those arms into the water. Or perhaps it was something more sinister. Other residents believed the blobs were the result of covert biological weapons testing, and that local, let's say, arsenal practice by the Air Force was just a cover. I don't want to say the B word too much. The B-O-M-B word. The government confirmed that B-O-M-B runs had taken place 40 to 50 miles from Oakville, but denied taking part in biological warfare. And you know, you got to believe them, right? Dr. Little suggested the blobs may have come from waste discharged from a plane. He argued this would explain human blood cells. It would also explain sick and dead animals, as antifreeze is used in the waste system of aircraft. The FAA put this idea down, the chemicals would have turned the blobs blue, not transparent. But the theory given the most credence is that the blobs were star jelly. This is a slang term for phenomena closely resembling the Oakville Blobs. Star jelly has been reported as appearing far back as the 14th century. It has been linked to all sorts of things, such as frog spawn, crystals or algae, sodium crystals or algae, and has been reported all over the world. And I just happened to have looked into it at Wikipedia, where the history says there have been reports of star jelly for centuries. John of Gaddesden, who lived between 1280 and 1361, mentions them as star of the earth in his medical writings, describing it as a certain mucilaginous substance lying upon the earth, suggesting it might be used to treat abscesses. A 14th century Latin medical glossary has an entry for eulogo, described as a certain fatty substance emitted from the earth, commonly called a star which has fallen. Similarly, an English-Latin dictionary from around 1440 has an entry for slime. That's from the Latin. And they have an Arabic rendering here as well for falling or shooting star. In Welsh, it has been referred to as pwrdrysau'r, meaning rot from the stars. In 1910, T.M. Hughes ruminated in the periodical Nature as to why poets and ancient writers associated meteors with star jelly, and observed that the jellies seemed to grow out from among the roots of the grass. The Oxford English Dictionary lists a large number of other names for the substance: star fallen, star falling, star shot, star slime, star slough, star slubber, star spurt, and star slutch. Examples: a jelly-like substance was seen after a luminous meteor somewhere between Siena and Rome in 1652. Also found when a meteor had fallen to the earth in 1718 in Liti, the island, an Indonesian island, the westernmost of the Liti Islands. According to a Philadelphia Inquirer story, police officers in South Philadelphia saw what appeared to be a parachute drift through the air, landing in an open field about 10 p.m. in September of 1950. The officers said the object glowed purple when they shined flashlights on it, felt sticky when they touched it. Oh gosh, the 50s. And shortly dissolved, leaving no residue. The story was picked up in the national press as a sort of joke, and credited with being the inspiration for the 1958 film The Blob, with Steve McQueen. And that's the end of that story. What else do we have? Here from at KUOW.org, a story by Libby Dunkman from May of this year, entitled The Return of the Blobs, Southwest Washington, revisited by decades-old gooey mystery. And Ms. Dunkman begins. Elder with an interesting joke. Welcome, Philip Blair. Philip says 1910 was before my time. And Libby begins, a curious phenomenon known as the Oakville Blobs appears to have returned to a small southwest Washington community. I wonder if it's the same one. 31 years after the first reports of an unidentified gelatinous substance falling from the sky. No, that's not. This time the goo fell in Rochester. Allie McCreet had just returned home from work on April the 8th of this year when she saw the blobs. The goo was raining down from the sky over her home. McCreet told QUOW's Soundside program, they're clear, gelatinous, about the size of the palm of my hand. No odor. Just smelled like rainwater. McCreet reported that she found about 10 blobs in total. She collected some in a jar, but the blobs later melted at room temperature. Yeah, it was cold back in April, right? And if you're in Washington State. McCreet immediately suspected she might be witnessing the return of a local legend. Rochester sits about 8 miles from Oakville in Grays Harbor County. That's where 31 years ago there were similar reports of the goo falling from the sky. Never was there an explanation for the bizarre happening. It made national headlines. It made it into an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, hosted by Robert Stack. McCreet said, I used to live in Oakville, so I knew about the blobs because everybody does. I was like, my gosh, this is literally what happened. After that incident in '94, some locals reported being sickened by the substance. In a 2014 report in the Daily Chronicle, Beverly Roberts recalled the goo from decades earlier. She spent nearly a week in the hospital with severe vertigo after being exposed. Several friends reported animals dying after eating the substance, Roberts told the paper. When they were first reported in August of '94, the blobs were about the size of a grain of rice, much smaller than what McCreet collected. That's according to eyewitness accounts. One coming from Tom Paulson, a former journalist at the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, who initially broke the story that went viral. Paulson recounted on KUOW. I started out thinking this was going to be kind of a joke. It was a slow summer day. I was just looking for some way to get out of the office. He was interviewing 2 Oakville residents in their home about the blobs. Quote, thinking I'm just going to have a fun, goofy story here, and then it started raining while we were there, and blobs fell out of the sky. I saw the blobs, he said. Initially guessing the goo could be toilet waste ejected from an airplane, Paulson called the FAA and McCord Air Force Base, but neither claimed the goo. Paulson said samples were eventually sent to the Departments of Ecology and Health, but they came up with conflicting results. Ecology said the blobs were inorganic. Health said the opposite. Paulson said, so testing resolved nothing. Good point, T. Plateau. Thank you, Gotcha Man. Excellent suggestion, sir. That sounds really good. The reporter said he finally took it upon himself to send a chunk of blob to a private lab at the cost of $100. And how much was $100 worth back in '94? How much was $100 worth in 1994? We're asking ChatGPT, the AI based in the USA. Only twice as much? I'm a little surprised. Twice as much. $200. And now I can't find $100. Oh, it pages up for some reason every time I leave it? That's odd. Search for 100 here. Oh, wrong story. The result? Polyacrylamide. It's a chemical used for various purposes to prevent soil erosion, or as a water treatment flocculant, or to clean up oil, or even to stabilize cosmetics. Paulson said, and of course nobody really wanted to accept that because it's boring. I guess they wanted biological warfare. As to why polyacrylamide would fall from the sky, Paulson said, we don't know. Over the years, there's been theories. The public's fascination with the blob seems to reemerge every few years, Paulson said, and he had a long career in journalism. He said with a laugh, they're probably the most long-lived, most reported story of mine. It's my legacy. Over in Rochester, McCreet said she appreciates how the mystery of the blobs has started interesting conversations. I hope it does get solved, McCreet said. After a moment, she said, it is something gross, and I just touched it from my yard. Okay, it is 35 minutes past the hour. By the way, people, we're going 10 minutes long tonight. It is 35 after the hour, and it's time for our next suggestion. And that is from T. Plateau. Let's do a little bookkeeping here. We have T. Plateau. We have a web page from Elder. We have a suggestion from, and a suggestion from Gotcha Man. Wait, what is what? No, this is the suggestion from, Gotcha Man has a suggestion from somebody else. Who was it? Rhino Rex. Okay, that's from Rhino Rex, and that is like third, because before that we have a web page from Elder. And then we have a suggestion from Gotcha Man. But first up, from Takahama Olsen 2. Where is Paige Renkoski? I'm sorry, Renkoski. It is Paige Renkoski. Paige, that's like an 80s kind of name, right? "35 years later, what happened to?" From the Livingston Daily, a newspaper report. Could there be a connection? T. Plateau rules, says T. Plateau. Very 80s, but it is still used, says T. Plateau. Elder Ghost says they're making those names up. They're not real. Ooh, how about Uncovered? Missing. From Fowlerville, Michigan. Here at uncovered.com is the Paige Renkoski Paige. Overview. The car of a beloved Michigan substitute teacher is found idling along the shoulder of Interstate 96 in 1990. Paige Renkoski vanished after she dropped her mother off at the airport. Motorists reported seeing her on the side of the road, talking to unidentified men. Paige Renkoski was an admired substitute teacher from DeWitt Township in Michigan. She was working as a preschool aide while going to school for a degree in early childhood development. Many who knew Paige describe her as hardworking and fun-loving. At the time of her disappearance, she was engaged to Steve DeBrander. Then on May 24th, 1990, Paige first dropped her mother off at Detroit Metro Airport and then made a pit stop to visit a friend who just had a baby. After that visit, she went to a store to pick up alcohol between 2:30 and 2:45 p.m. Allegedly, Paige had stopped on the westbound shoulder of Interstate 96, about half a mile from the highway exit of Fowlerville, Michigan. Witnesses would later tell police Paige was last seen around 3:30 p.m., standing by a maroon or burgundy minivan with two unidentified males. According to sources, it is possible there was a third unidentified man inside or near the van. A witness also said she saw Paige throw her hands up in the air as one of the men placed his hand on her shoulder. Damn, why didn't that person pull over? Come on. I mean, even in the 90s, give me a break. I'd be pulling over. I would be pulling over. It's one of my favorite pastimes to get into other people's business. She's described as a white female with blonde hair and blue eyes. She has one surgical scar on her right leg, one long surgical scar on the inside of her right arm, and a scar on her right elbow. She also has two surgical screws inserted into her left knee, and her right knee has been replaced. What was her age? Did they say when she was born? Elder says, gosh, she's a cyborg. Welcome, Synchro 505. Synchro 505 provides all the incidental music for the show. What is her age? That would seem basic in one of these websites where they're supposed to cover everything about an incident, right? Well, here we go. Missing birthday, 1960. Damn, she was 30 years old. She already had her knee replaced? Holy cow, and two pins in her left knee. Wow. Maybe she got in an accident or something. By 7:30 p.m. that same evening, a motorist who saw Paige earlier that day noticed that her car had not moved. Police were called and arrived on the scene to find her '86 silver Olds Cutlass on the side of the interstate. The car belonged to her mother's employer. When investigators arrived, they found the car doors unlocked, the radio still on, the engine still idling. Paige's keys, wallet, and shoes were inside the vehicle. Her shoes, along with an open bottle of beer. No damage was done to the vehicle. Prior to her disappearance, Paige deposited a large sum of money into her account. The exact amount is unknown, which has remained unused. Paige did not have any travel plans. Her case is still unsolved. Around this time, there were multiple instances of people pretending to be police officers. And of course, you hear it on the news and you get copycat criminals. Was this carjacking gone wrong? What happened to Paige? If you have any information regarding Paige's case, please contact Livingston County Sheriff's Department at 517-540-7880. I wonder if something like this could be solved after all this time. Dare we ask ChatGPT for an article with more detail? I need the URL of an article on the web that goes into great detail about the disappearance of, I will paste in the name, Paige Renkoski. Here are two in-depth articles. Of course, Wikipedia. How about click on Detroit? URLs for your reference. This dated this year, last month, May 22nd, 2025. It's written by Erica Erickson, entitled Never Giving Up, One Woman's Mission to Solve Her Sister's 35-Year Mystery in Washtenaw County. And this is at clickondetroit.com. I was 24 when she disappeared, said Michelle. Tips still come in, she also said. Some are 8-page messages on social media. I thank them and forward everything to the Livingston County Cold Case team. And it's amazing after 35 years, people are still remembering. That day, she was on her way to Steve's softball game. That must be her husband, Steve, right? Where do we see the husband's name? In this one? Oh, that's a star jelly. HUSB. Steve. Steve DeBrander. Engaged. It wasn't a husband. It was an engagement. Steve DeBrander, her fiance. That day, she was on her way to Steve's softball game, reportedly coming from the Canton area. She dropped her mother at the airport. At 2 p.m., she had a picnic in Griffin Park in Canton with a friend and her friend's children. At 2:30, she stopped at a party store and purchased a magazine and a beer, one beer. Then she headed west on I-96 to her fiance's softball game. She never made it. Rhino Rex says, hey, I live like an hour away from there. Why did Paige pull over? She pulled over 50 yards before the exit. Nothing wrong with the car. It was still idling. That's been the haunting question for 3.5 decades. Some witnesses said Paige was seen talking to 2 men besides a maroon van. Some said 1 man. Well, first you're going to be talking to 1 man, right? One witness also reportedly told police Paige appeared upset. Michelle said she could just not understand why her sister would pull over in the first place. Paige was not known to pull over for a stranger. Was it someone she knew? Since the case began, a working theory has been that someone got Paige to pull over by showing her a police badge, real or fake. Gotcha Man with a link. Thank you, Gotcha Man. Gotcha Man says they think it was a man named Buster Robbins. Same M.O. Thank you, G-Man. Here at LivingstonDaily.com, a story by Tess Ware. Man charged in case with similarities to Paige Renkoski's disappearance 35 years ago. Well, it says just before the exit. Do they say which exit? We could go to the scene. We could go to the scene of the crime. Well, Cutlass, side of Interstate 96 is all this says. Then we have this one. From Erica. That's the detailed one. Then we have this one from Livingston Daily. Which is the detailed one? Not this one, right? Investigations later found Paige's silver 2-door Olds on the side of, here it is, on the side of I-96 near the Fowlerville exit. Okay, we have to ask ChatGPT first to find out the exit number. Or we could just go look at Fowlerville, right? In, is it Michigan? Canton area. Is this Michigan, people? Oh, so Livingston Daily is, where is that published? We don't know. They're not going to give the state in a local paper or from a local news story. So we're stuck with this one. Michigan. Okay, Fowlerville, right? Fowlerville, Michigan. Wrong page. Fowlerville, Michigan. Described as a village. There's I-96 right there. Coming from Canton. Okay, where's Canton? Got to know which direction she was coming from. Canton, huh? Give us some names, people. Fowlerville, Howell, Brighton, Lansing, Portland, Charlotte. We could go there and from here, I guess. Canton, Michigan. Canton, Michigan. Which way are we going to go? It's near Akron. It is near Akron, okay. So that's Ohio. And where is Ohio in reference to Michigan? Give us some state names. Cleveland, Ohio here, obviously. So Canton, huh? Boy, that's a hell of a trip, isn't it? And since the road runs east to west, I imagine it would be from the east. Right? Yeah, slightly south. So yeah, from the east. Let's find that exit again. So it's there's the exit right there. Let's go right about here. Let's highlight first. Right about here. Right before the exit, they say. Ooh, we got a ways to go. Okay. I'm going to think that the bridge is going to distract people as they're driving under it. Oh, look, right across from a restaurant, at least a restaurant today. So right about here. Not much of a curb, huh? Boy, they were bold. And you could see right over to the restaurant. I mean, with all those witnesses, you wouldn't think so, would you? Maybe it's Canton, Michigan. Is there a city called Canton in Michigan? Yes, also known as Canton Charter. Okay. 23 miles west of Detroit, 50 miles east of Ann Arbor. We may be coming from the wrong direction, possibility. It is the same direction, Elder, thank you. I mean, all these witnesses. Oh, wait, no, it wouldn't have been there then, would it? Back here where it's grassy. I don't know why I'm getting flashes here. Oh, because Dragon's still on. Sorry, guys. It could have been back here. Let's escape again here. It could have been like here. Let's assume it was here. I mean, they wouldn't want to do anything in front of a whole bunch of witnesses, right? Maybe here, maybe farther down. Looks like there's brush on the side of the road, but at least there's kind of a place to pull over. Synchro says we're on an investigative road trip. It comes in waves, says Michelle. Tips get you thinking again, talking to the cold case team, trying to piece things together. I always say every tip is 50-50. Either it's something or it's nothing. One possible connection that has resurfaced is 69-year-old Buster Robbins, a man who the prosecutors said had his pilot's license, and who the Macomb County Sheriff's Office confirms to Local 4 was a reserve officer for its mounted unit from 88 to 89. This happening in 90 after he was depressed from losing his job. Allegedly. Unfortunately, due to how much time had passed, they were unable to provide further details. Wait, what are the details about Buster Robbins? I need an article with more details about the possible suspect, Buster Robbins. Man charged. Click on Detroit. Again from clickondetroit.com. And a story by Samantha Sales. Man charged in 1989 Washtenaw County rape, sexual assault. Unalive case. Appeared in court. Here's what happened. Unaliving case. Huh. The man accused of abducting, sexually assaulting, and unaliving Beverly Wavell over 35 years ago. So about the same time period, too. Appeared in court on Tuesday. Robbins was charged for the sexual assault and murder of Wavell. He was found unalive on the side of the road in Superior Township in 1989. A year before. According to the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office, Wavell was sleeping in her vehicle in Canton Township. They might have followed her from Canton. After dropping her son off at school when she was abducted, sexually assaulted and shot. SA, we'll say. Just, welcome. Just says, I'm new to the community, but I am a fellow TI, and I've been getting tormented for 8 years. Hello. Welcome, Just. I feel your pain, bud. DNA evidence from an R kit completed in '89 was sent for forensic genealogy testing in 2024. The testing linked the DNA to Robbins, and prosecutors confirmed that he and Wavell did not know each other. Same MO. A judge ruled in March during Robbins' preliminary examination not to bind him over for trial, but added, I believe there's more to this story. On May 20th of 2025, an appeal hearing was held to determine if there's enough evidence to move the case back to district court. The judge said, quote, the district court appears to have erred by only considering direct evidence while not acknowledging the circumstantial evidence, and that it provided a sufficient basis to make a person of ordinary caution and prudence conscientiously obtaining belief of the defendant's guilt. This was an abuse of the district court's discretion. I wonder what's happened since then. The judge ruled that the case will be remanded to district court. Robbins is set. Here it is. Robbins is set to return to court next month on the 31st. Previous coverage. During a motion hearing in May, prosecutors said he should not be given bond And on his tablet was found child corn. Defense requested Robbins to be out on bond, saying there's little to no evidence leading to Robbins being connected with Wyvell's unaliving. The only evidence is that DNA was found out in, it says here, in Wyvell, it says. His DNA was found in Wyvell. The judge decided to give Robbins a $5 million bond. He's required to have a GPS tether and reside with his daughter. Prosecutors appealed. The defense has until May 19th to respond. I'm scared he's going to get off, said Phyllis Megason, Wyvell's niece. Elder says, only DNA. Not conclusive at all, honestly. How to, Just. Detective Casey Luke with the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office testified. Deputies were sent to the area of Ford and Gotfredson roads for reports of a woman who had been shot and was found at the side of the road in 1989. Okay, it is 5 minutes past the hour. And time for a suggestion from... I should leave that up. It's one of the dinosaur people. I can't see the name because it's Eldergrown relayed it. It begins with an R. Rhino Rex. Rhino Rex. Okay, and that is. No, didn't get it that time. How about this time? It can't be that. Oh, I'm clicking on a blank place then. Because Elders is next. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm out of order. Rhino, you're next after Elder. I think. That's the order. To the best of my recollection. UFOinsight.com is a story by Marcus Louth. We've read a story by Marcus before, entitled "The Daylight Discs Incident" of 1665, Stralsund, Germany. And Mr. Louth begins. We have examined several historic UFO cases that happened long before the modern UFO era of the 1940s onwards. However, one particular sighting from 1665 in Stralsund in Germany stands out, not least as it offers details that are almost identical to other similar sightings around Europe at roughly the same time. This one is fascinating, folks. I did a video about this on the original show. Furthermore, the account was written about by other writers and researchers after the incident appeared in the press of the time. This suggests the incident was perhaps one that made a great impression, not only on the witnesses, but on the wider community. Of course, they wouldn't print anything, you know. A witness walks in and tells you a fantastic story. Lots of people saw it. We might also ask, as we recount the events of that afternoon in 65 of the 17th century, just why these types of incidents, one specifically mentioning battles in the sky, appear to take place during the 16th and 17th centuries. Just what was happening in the skies of our planet at that time. The case comes to us in the contemporary Western world from Hillebrand von Ludwiger in his 1998 book, Best UFO Cases Europe. One depiction here. Let's open a new tab for a second. Now here's the town, Stralsund. Oh, I put a T on the end of it. That's how you pronounce it. I just didn't realize that it was always written that way at one time. Oh, excuse me. I have helium voice. And here, probably produced at the time, because after it happened, I'm sure people forgot about it. And they went drawing pictures all through the centuries about this. This was drawn at the time. So this is Stralsund. And here's the sea, and there's a little boat on the sea by Stralsund. It is on the water. And here are ships in the sky, right here. There's one ship, there's another one. There's a couple over here. The picture, and a lot of them too. There's some boats with sails furled. There's a couple of big ships here. There's a sailboat there. More up there. Two big galleons over here. Gotta wait for that to go down. Go down. Thank you. On the afternoon of 8th of April, 1665, in Stralsund, near the Baltic Sea. It was in Germany then. I think it's, might be in Austria now. One of the most intriguing incidents of historical UFO encounters would unfold. On this particular afternoon, around 2 p.m., several fishermen would notice an unusually large swarm of birds over the sea, seemingly coming from the north. As the men watched, this swarm of birds changed to battleships in the sky. It is most likely here that this was not a physical change, but the men mistook the objects for birds when first seeing them. Either way, what followed next was an aerial battle that will perhaps sit better within the confines of a Star Wars film. The aerial crafts would fight against each other, during which a lot of smoke developed. Furthermore, more and more ships would appear in the sky, each immediately going to battle with these various sized and shaped crafts. This continued for several hours. Then another huge object appeared overhead. We will turn our attention to that in a moment, says the author. And at this time, I'd really like to see the original newspaper story, because first of all, it's really cool looking. What year is the raid here again? 1665, right? How could I forget that? 1665. ChatGPT. I would like to see a photographic reproduction of the periodical publication which covered contemporarily the sky battle of ships in Stralsund 1665. Or maybe we should have just entered it, right? Historical engravings. No, I want to see the newspaper article. Let's just copy this. Go to here. Look up the image. Do a Google image search. Okay, where's the dang newspaper article? There it is. This is very interesting because this is how the newspaper, the publication artist depicted it. Oh, that's a small version. Where's a bigger version? We want to be able to read this. Oh, it's probably in German. Celestial phenomenon. Even smaller. Even smaller. That's not the same incident. That one isn't, really? Oh, that's pretty big. Open image, new tab. Other says this is not the same incident. But as the article said, one that happened around the same time elsewhere in Europe. So let's take it as that. A battle in the sky. Two forces fighting each other. I think this one was about like one side and another side, rather than developing in groups or congregating. Rhino Rex asks, how many times has this happened? Following the vanishing of the vision, a short calm ensued. Then a flat round form appeared in the sky. It was, according to Erasmus Francisci, who would describe this incident in his 1680 writings as an air vision. Like a plate and looking like the big hat of a man. The object would move through the sky, apparently the color of the moon, before stopping over the top of St. Nikolai Church, where it remained for several hours. Of course, such a destination would only confirm to the men that what they had witnessed was a divine vision, as opposed to a very real physical aerial battle involving nuts and bolts aircraft. But what do they know about aircraft back then? Like zip. Both things would be interpreted as divine. We're one at that time of a religious bent, and most people were. The author continues, we should note, though, that such buildings as churches were likely the focal point of these communities. And they were certainly some of the tallest buildings of the area. It is perhaps not surprising, then, they would attract the attention of aerial visitors. Look, a tall building. Let's go see the tall building. I'm so bad. Regardless of how they perceived the strange object, the fishermen soon became frightened by the vision, burying their faces in their huts. The following day, however, they fell sick with trembling all over and pain in their head and limbs. According to another report, one of the men had even been physically sick on his feet. At least two of the men were interrogated as to what they had seen. And while the witnesses and the wider townsfolk believed the vision to be a sign from God, we today mostly likely view the events from a modern perspective. It would seem perfectly obvious to us the fishermen witnessed some type of aerial battle involving vehicles that were hundreds of years ahead of their era. And following this display, a disc which was shaped like a man's hat with a dome on top, writes the author, would hover over the church of the town, most likely the main focal point of the community. Perhaps even more interesting is the fact that the witnesses became ill the following day. If they were in relatively close proximity to these strange aerial vehicles, and taking into account the symptoms of which we know, is it not likely they were suffering from some kind of radiation poisoning? As we will examine shortly, an account from Russia only 2 years previously shares some of the same details. Not least radiation-type burns to several fishermen in close proximity to the craft. We should perhaps note that Renkoski, and most likely others of the time, believed the vision was a warning of an upcoming war. And in the decade and a half that would follow the incident, the Prussians and Swedish would indeed find themselves locked in conflict. However, leaving the aerial battle aspect for the moment, we know that UFO sightings increase around wartime. And right before. Could that have been the case here? Europe, at the time and certainly in the centuries that preceded it, was hardly a place free of violence and misery. It's impossible to read this account and not recall the sky battles of the mid-1500s. Elder is correct, and here's the confirmation. The caption here reads, "A depiction of the strange objects over Nuremberg in 1561. I read the German translation of the city. We say Nuremberg. They say Nuremberg. The first in Nuremberg in 1561 saw hundreds of globes, crosses, and tubes fill the sky. What's more, they would do battle with each other, resulting in clouds of thick black smoke. Even stranger, following the battle, spear-like objects would hover overhead for several hours. 5 years later, in 1566, over Basel, many large black balls appeared over the city. They too would do battle. They would move at high speed toward the sun and make half-turns. I guess that back at the time they didn't say 90-degree turns, they said half-turns, right? According to the report, some were even consumed and died out. Casualties. Another account, only 7 years earlier in Russia, occurred only 2 years before the sighting of Stralsund. In August of '63, while most of the town of Robetzero were at church, a great ball of fire would come out of the sky. It would hover, leave and then return over the area several times. It would even approach a small fishing boat on the water. The fishermen would suffer from severe burns on their bodies following the incident. Now that's close to a radiation source. Given that a vision is highly unlikely to be the real cause of these strange aerial occurrences, we must ask, was there some kind of aerial conflict taking place over Europe and Russia? Might there even be other accounts that have simply not been recorded or lost? It's possible, whether through the remoteness of some locations or with the church still having far too much influence, many might have been as keen to keep such sightings to themselves. Let's assume that these strange craft overhead were indeed the result of two alien races. One's locked in some kind of cosmic war. What's their connection to Earth? Why would such a battle take place here, and even then? Why in random places and across several years? The reason why is because they're here already. They're already here. Probably always have been here. This is like, they consider this planet evidently a vacation spot. Might it be the case that one or both of these races were indigenous to Earth? Might they have been underground or inner Earth civilizations, of which so many ancient writings speak? Or slipping through from another dimension to romp around in hours before they return. There's a name for that. It's crypto... I don't remember. Crypto something. Crypto terrestrials. T Plateau, can you throw that link in the chat? I would love to read that on the stream. Rhino Rex says, great, we're the empty wasteland they fight in, so as not to risk anything important. Right? Most dismissed claims of underground civilizations. We'll skip that part. And there's a little debunky there, and then here we go. Here's my point. Perhaps another point to consider here is that these sightings of battling UFOs might be an intentional manifestation. Perhaps this was a crashing into our realm of existence by these battling factions. Perhaps it was achieved through an unintentional gateway. After all, it would appear that these two warring factions simply appeared overhead out of the sky. Why would they travel the reaches of space and then do battle high in the atmosphere? Because they're already here. This is evidence. The Navy and the Air Force have recorded evidence on film. They're already here. They probably always have been. Mike says the kids were playing with the portal machine again. Tina T says, just popped in our sky by accident. Their cloaking devices probably failed. Perhaps such weaponry combined with unknown aspects of the universe created such a gateway. No need to go that far. They're already here. A credible historic UFO case. Thank you, T Plateau, for the link. You know, here I have a translation of the original periodical article. Let's see. And I got to copy that. Thank you, Elder. And let's search for that. I bet it's really cool. Oh, that's the Nuremberg one. What about the 1665? Stralsund. No, evidently not. They do not have a periodical, I guess. Or if it is, it's not at Wikipedia. Okay, let's check out the Nuremberg, which occurred in the same time period. Translation. Broadsheet. Here we go. In the morning of April 14th, 1561, at daybreak between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred on the sun. And then this was seen in Nuremberg, in the city, before the gates, and in the country, by many men and women. At first there appeared in the middle of the sun 2 blood-red semicircular arcs, just like the moon in its last quarter. And in the sun, above and below and on both sides, the color was blood. There stood a round ball of partly dull, partly black ferrous color. Likewise there stood on both sides, and as a torus about the sun, such red blood ones and other balls in large number, about 3 in a line and 4 in a square, and some also alone, flying in formation. In between these globes there were visible a few blood-red crosses, between which were blood-red strips, becoming thicker to the rear and in front malleable, like rods of reed grass, which were intermingled. Among them 2 big rods, one on the right, the other on the left. And within the small and big rods there were 3, also 4 more globes. These all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes, which were first in the sun, flew out to the one standing on both sides. That's where I get the memory from 2 armies, 2 sides clashing. Lost my place, sorry. These all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes, on both sides. Thereafter the globes standing outside the sun, in the small and large rods, flew into the sun. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves, and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict, in and again out of the sun, was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all fell from the sun down upon the earth, as if they all burned. And they then wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After all this, there was something like a black spear, very long and thick. The shaft pointed to the east, the point west. Whatever such signs mean, God alone knows. Although we have seen, shortly one after another, many kinds of signs on the heaven, which are sent to us by the Almighty God, to bring us to repentance. We are still sadly so ungrateful that we despise such high signs and miracles of God. But we speak of them with ridicule and discard them to the wind, in order that God may send us a frightening punishment on account of our folly. After all, the God-fearing will by no means discard these signs, but will take them to heart as a warning of their merciful Father in heaven, will mend their lives and faithfully beg God that he may avert his wrath, including well-deserved punishment, so that we may temporarily here and perpetually there live as his children. For that may God grant us his help, amen. By Hans Glaser, letter painter of Nuremberg. Now that's a good reading. I mean, not in that I'm complimenting my reading, but my own reading, but that's a good piece to read. You got to go to the original source, you know? At the time, it is 34 past the hour, and time for a new topic. And that is from Rhino Rex. No, that is from that is from Rhino Rex. At 35 past the hour, who wishes to know about the mystery of Loretto Chapel, the mystery of the Loretto Chapel staircase. Loretto, mystery of the Loretto Chapel staircase. Here at Grunge, the miracle of the Loretto Chapel staircase. We don't want any article that says explained, because that's got to be a debunky article. Historic Mysteries, we were there once today already. Atlas Obscura, usually very short renditions, usually. LorettoCommunity.org. Why not? Archives are full of primary sources that answer historical questions, writes Reba Weatherford. At LorettoCommunity.org, in a story entitled Representations of the Loretto Staircase Mystery, posted only 2 years ago, almost exactly. And the archives at the Loretto Heritage Center are no exception. It's just not possible to solve every Loretto mystery using the stacks at the Heritage Center. One mystery about which we frequently receive questions is the staircase of Our Lady of Light Chapel, also known as Loretto Chapel, in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The story about the staircase goes something like this. In 1878, the Loretto Chapel was completed, but no staircase was built. So the sisters could not access the choir loft. Many carpenters were called in to see about building a staircase, but they all came to the same conclusion. The chapel was too small for a staircase that would not interfere with the seating. The sisters made a novena to St. Joseph, the patron saint of carpenters. St. Joseph, of course. On the 9th day of prayer, a stranger appeared with a toolbox looking for work. After several months, he completed the staircase that is still in the chapel today. Once the work was completed, the carpenter left without taking pay or giving the sisters an opportunity to show their gratitude. The spiral staircase he built was an architectural marvel, making 2 complete revolutions with no middle support. The sisters even searched for the man. They ran an ad in a newspaper, but to no avail. Many came to believe that it was St. Joseph himself who completed the staircase. Treasure Chest of Fun and Fact was a comic book series made for and distributed to parochial schools from 1946 to 1972. Treasure Chest. I'd love to see some Treasure Chest covers. Treasure Chest of Fun and Fact, it's called. Let's check out some covers. At this place? Yes. At Google Images. Here's one. From 1949. Kind of a small picture, though. Well, we can, oh, bad policy, but, oh, it's an eBay. Oh, we got a bigger picture. Nice. Open image, a new tab. Thank you, eBay. Yeah. Treasure Chest of Fun and Fact. Oh, I thought it was going to be a religious leaning, but it's just a treasure chest of fun and fact. No teaser titles, just the periodical title. The kid's got to be interested enough in the picture to buy it. And this is after comic censorship, approved by the Comics Code. Beat Tops at Home, too. Obviously a later edition. Was a comic book series. The Loretto Chapel Staircase was the cover story for the March 1960 issue. Written by former sister Jean Catherine Maggio and an unknown illustrator. Maybe it is a religious leaning. The story, called The Spiral Staircase, a modern-day wonder, begins with a tourist family visiting the chapel. Once inside, a sister tells them the story of the mysterious staircase. The story then ends back in the present day with the tourist asking who built the staircase. This is a fun retelling of the mystery. And here's another, a children's book. The Staircase Song by J.K. Green. In the city of Santa Fe, the sisters of Loretto still pray. They thank God above for his faithful love and the carpenter he sent their way. The Little Church Mouse of the Loretto Chapel was published in the year 2000. It tells the story of a church mouse, a resident of the chapel, lonely on Christmas, until he finds a dove flying above the choir loft. He asks the dove to stay with him and relates the story of the staircase. This, too, is a fun retelling of the story, complete with talking animals and colorful illustrations. The staircase was a frequent subject of Brokaw, and the Heritage Center has in its collection several examples of her work. Brokaw who? Oh. It was written by June Kirkpatrick and illustrated by Michelle M.K. Brokaw. A note inside the book's cover indicates that the author and illustrator's royalties were donated to the Sisters of Loretto. Can't beat that. Docuseries, Unsolved Mysteries, episode 10 of season 3. Search for the Santa Fe staircase, and you will find a handful of videos, including an episode of the famed documentary series hosted by Robert Stack. Originally ran from 87 to 99. Although Sister Rita Marie Romero was interviewed for the story, Robert Stack's distinctive voice lends an eeriness to the mystery that other retellings lack. There's a made-for-TV movie filmed partially at the Loretto Chapel. The 1998 movie called The Staircase stars Barbara Hershey as Mother Magdalene, a fictionalized version of Mother Magdalene Hayden. Mother Magdalene searches and prays for a carpenter to build a staircase to their chapel choir loft. And a mysterious carpenter named Jode shows up to build one. I like that because it's from Grapes of Wrath. This is a very Hollywood retelling of the story, complete with an insinuation of flirtation or love affair between Mother Magdalene and the carpenter. Hot stuff. Those who cherish and admire the staircase mystery may find this retelling a little insulting. If you would believe something, I don't want to believe anything like that. It's so ridiculous as to be a non-starter. I wonder what it's rated on IMDb. The Staircase Made for TV movie. Let's find out. Duplicate tab. Where is it? Duplicate. There we go. The Staircase. It ain't that one. It ain't that one. And that ain't about... oh, it's raining outside. I can hear the rain coming down. It was so hot today. I'm hot right now. I can hear the rain. I'd be out there. I mean, it's coming down. The tomatoes need it. Okay, the staircase again, please. Now choose, please. The spiral staircase with Dorothy McGuire. See our results. The staircase. I don't see those actors. Oh, here's Barbara Hershey. 6-7. Okay, now, this is not an insulting movie. This is a movie that will pay off if you take the time to seek it out. I like Barbara Hershey anyway. But 6-7 is a very good movie rating. It's not easy to get 6-7 on IMDb. Only 14 user reviews. Was it made for TV? Where's the details? Filming locations, production company. 1 hour, 36 minutes. Not made for TV. Okay, where's the reviews? One critic review. Where's the review? You got to click on it or what? Skeptical Inquirer? Is that it? 404. Look, since it's not here, we're going to have to use the Wayback Machine, see if we can find it. Bookmarks. Research. Right at the top. And paste in that URL. Yes, indeed. Let's go to last year. Well, let's go to 2021 when it first appeared. Why not? And here's a snapshot. Skepticalinquirer.org was the original domain name. That's what it was back then. That's what it is now. Boy, is that really gone, that article. All right. Whoops, we were in the movie. So no critical reviews. How about people's reviews? A movie of strung together special moments. 7 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Great movie, even if less than perfect retelling of the story. This is a great film. Well acted and based on the true story of the miracle staircase at the Loretto Chapel. My only complaint is that the film diverges too much, in my opinion, from the true story behind the staircase. The true story is that it was built by St. Joseph. Very nice, predictable movie. 10 out of 10 from this reviewer. I could not agree more. I've not seen it since 1998, and I still can't get it out of my head. Or stop recommending people to find it. So that shows what an impression it made. Just a wonderful story. Another 10 out of 10. I'm from Texas. And my family vacationed a couple years ago in Santa Fe. My brother suggested we go to the church to see the staircase. I was blown away by the miracles that took place there. The movie is great. Barbara Hershey and William Peterson were perfect for the parts they played. It is amazing. Absolutely. If you have not seen this movie in person, it is worth the trip. The wood is beautiful and the architecture is astounding. Just seeing the chapel gives me goosebumps. To read about its history and then to see its beauty is breathtaking. That's right, because they were out there. They filmed partly there. William Peterson asks T. Plateau, is that Gil Grissom from CSI? Isn't it? Let's ask that question of ChatGPT. Whoops, wrong little tab. Yes, it is. Good actor. Good actor. Rhino Rex did read the wood the staircase was made of was not native to the area. And they don't know where it came from. Wow. Glad to hear you're back, Tina. Glad to hear Mama's going to sleep. I'm sorry, I'm drifting. There's a story here somewhere that we were in the middle of. I think it's near here. somewhere. Oh, yeah, it's over here. The Mystery of the Loretto Chapel Staircase. Let's take a look at it. Loretto Chapel Staircase. Whoa. The dragon is still on. My apologies. Look at that nice pic. That's from underneath. Oh, and it's excellent resolution. It's 2400 by 3000. Looks like 3600. Yeah, 2400 by 3600. That's 2 by 3. Yes, it is. Isn't that gorgeous? He knew what he was doing. That carpenter Jode. Look at the detail. This guy just walked in. Wow. Two curves. You'd have to another, like they said, it's a small chapel, right? I'm surprised they don't have pictures here of the chapel itself as well, like how wide it is and stuff. Oh, there's one. Also fairly large in size. Taking up almost 1/3 of that side. Small little church, I guess. And look at that. So is the, if he built this, did he build this as well? Does it have the same, what do you call those things? Staves? Does it have the same staves? We could see better from the other photo, probably. So there's a flare out, and then a flare, and then a concave, and then just like one little ring there. No way. Are those alternating designs? Because that looks odd. Maybe it's just a reflection making it look odd. No, that's just a reflection. One ring here, a flare outward, and a concave section there. What about at the top of the stairs? For the choir? Oh, and we didn't see that part down there. There's another bulb down there. There's the choir barrier, the same. The top looks similar. Yeah, it's got to be the same. That looks the same. So he probably also built that part as well. Or copied it. I mean, a good carpenter, right, can copy it. But it seemed to me from the description that was already there. Tina asks, does it say what kind of wood he used, Bill? Thank you, Tina. What kind of wood was used in the building of the Loretto Chapel staircase. Staircase. Non-native spruce. Please stop that. Non-native spruce. Mystery. This type of wood is not native to New Mexico, and there were no local records of it being imported at the time of construction. The staircase is held together without nails or glue, only wooden pegs. Wow. Which is architecturally unusual, especially given its tight spiral and unsupported central column. Interesting. It is 1 minute past the hour. And time for a suggestion from Gotcha Man. Wow, have I run that long? We're going 10 minutes over tonight, people. Because we had some earlier technical difficulties. And Gotcha Man had a really interesting looking one, too. Which was the Peter Bergmann case is unaliving, or is unalivement, a man that didn't exist. Tina T says, you know, Jesus was a carpenter. Now I'm wondering. God bless you, dear. Why am I going to the end of this? Should we go in here? The eerie case of the gray-haired man who deleted his past. Ooh, Daily Mail. I love those British rags. Here at the dailymail.co.uk is a story by Ellen Coughlin entitled, and this is a long title, The Eerie Case of the Gray-Haired Man Who Deleted His Past. Tourist with no record of entering the country checked into a hotel under a fake name. 3 days later, he was unalive. And 16 years later, there are still no answers. And Ms. Coughlin begins. On a sunny, warm June afternoon, a gray-haired man with a German accent checked into the Sligo City Hotel. He had arrived by taxi. After getting a bus from Derry to Sligo, a seaside town in the west of Ireland. He checked in with the name of Peter Bergmann. He paid with cash and then carried 3 pieces of luggage to his room. 4 days later, his body washed up on the beach. His unalivement marked the first act of a mystery that has baffled police forces and compelled journalists and internet sleuths for more than a decade. Because Peter Bergmann did not exist. The mystery man used a fake name Gave a fake address. Oh, it sounds like self-harm to me, right? Gave a fake address and apparently appeared in Ireland without any passport or any record. At the hotel, he gave an address in Austria as his home. But police later discovered the address did not exist. The man looked to be in his late 50s or early 60s, 5 foot 10 inches tall, with blue eyes and a slight tan. There's a picture of him, courtesy of Sligo police. Evidently, that's one of his pieces of luggage. Looks like a shopping bag, plastic shopping bag to me. Over the next 3 days, he was captured by security cameras, leaving the hotel with a full plastic bag and returning to his room with nothing. I'm sorry. It's really bad form to laugh at someone who's not alive. On the 4th day, he went to the nearby seaside village of Ross's Point, where he would later wash up on the shore. Bizarrely, he had not drowned. The official cause of death was determined to be cardiac arrest. There was no water in his lungs. It's thought his heart failed just moments before he went into the sea. Irish Times journalist Rosita Boland, who spent years investigating this case, joined Sarah McGlinchey to go through the bizarre details. Rosita spoke to every witness in the case, visiting the hotel and the beach where his body was found. She said he had a Navy t-shirt on, and he had a pair of Speedo-type swimming trunks. But then over those, he had his underwear, which is just bizarre. If you were going swimming, why wouldn't you take off your underpants and t-shirt? Other items of the man's clothing were carefully folded nearby, but no ID was found. And the tags have been cut off all of his clothing. I think this man went there with the intention to commit self-harm. That's my theory. In the hopes to uncover why he was in Ireland and how he managed to go undetected, police looked back at the man's final footsteps. But 16 years on, it remains a mystery. Pardon me. I'm losing my low tones there. I really should start doing my vocal exercises again before the show. There's again. They think, and the caption says, they think late 50s, early 60s, 5 foot 10 inch. I'm 5 foot 11, with blue eyes and a slight tan. There's no record of him entering Ireland. Well, if you don't have a name, how could there be a record of him entering Ireland? If you don't have a name, there's no record of you entering Ireland. A living depiction was created. Those are piercing blue eyes from that police artist. Rosita said, "Thank you, Tina." The first we know of his existence in Ireland is him turning up at the bus station in Derry that Friday afternoon. It's very unlikely he was living in Northern Ireland, but we don't know how he got there. He was caught on CCTV at Derry bus station, consciously looking for the bus to Sligo. He first got on a bus to Galway and then got off when he heard it wasn't for Sligo. Check for people who grew up in the area, maybe? Kids who had grown up in the area, but maybe their families left when the kids were really young. Arriving at 6:30 p.m. in the town, he took a taxi to somewhere cheap to stay, quote unquote, evidently what he said to the driver. So the driver took him to the Sligo City Hotel. He was dressed in a black leather jacket and had 2 bags with him. One was for a small laptop. During the investigation, they discovered the address in Vienna that Peter used to check into the hotel did not exist. He was spotted leaving the hotel 13 times with a purple plastic bag. I still want to laugh. It's a sin. Each time the bag was full of contents, but when he returned, the bag was nowhere to be seen. Rosita said either he dumped the contents and put the empty bag back in his pocket, or he had lots of bags in his room. It didn't have any markings on it, like from this or that grocery store, right? One person emailed me and said maybe he had unalived somebody, and he was disposing of the limbs in those bags. Maybe a small person. The bags weren't terribly big. They didn't look like heavy bags either, and they would have had to have been heavy, even if they were a small child. They looked like they were full of cotton. On his first day in town, he made his way to the General Post Office, where he bought 8 stamps and some airmail stickers. However, he was never seen posting anything, and stamps were not found in his possession after death. On Sunday in the early afternoon, he left the hotel for the town's only taxi rank and asked to be taken to a quiet beach where he could swim. The driver took him to Ross's Point. However, on arrival, he surveyed the beach, seemed satisfied with the choice, and asked for the taxi to take him back to Sligo. Self-harm. He just wants to do it in a nice place. What a shame. Now I am sad. He was then seen carrying the 3 bags he arrived with: a black hold-all, the laptop bag, and 1 more purple plastic bag. But by the time he got to Sligo bus station, the hold-all bag was missing, and it was never found by the police. Good evening, Verpine. Tina says this is a sad mystery. Yeah, no doubt. Later, he was spotted by 16 people on the beach, but no one saw him enter the water. He's evidently waited for people to leave, I guess. At 10:30 that evening, he was seen along the beach carrying his purple plastic bag. The last time he was seen was at 11:50 p.m., walking along the edge of the water. The next morning, not long after 6, he was found washed up on the beach by a father and son, out for a jog. Peter Bergmann's body had been taken to post-mortem, but there wasn't any hint of foul play. The post-mortem did reveal he was in poor health, with advanced stages of prostate cancer. Not prostrate, prostate. With advanced stages of prostate cancer and bone tumors. Self-harm. Meanwhile, his heart had signs of previous ischemic heart disease. But despite all these conditions, there was no trace of medication in his system. And he's got balls. Rosita said, was he thinking that perhaps I'm terminally ill? I'm just going to go in the ocean. We know that he didn't die of drowning. Did he take something that brought on a heart attack? It's a crazy coincidence. Did he unalive spontaneously? Or did he have a hand in his own unaliving? It's a total mystery. In 2019, the Gardaí, I don't know what that is, allowed Rosita to inspect Peter's clothes, which were kept in evidence. The Gardaí. She said they were full of sand, his T-shirt, trunks, and underpants. They lifted those out, and there was just sand. So they put the items he was wearing? Wait a minute. They put the items he was wearing in evidence. T-shirt, trunks, and underpants, but not the Speedo? Where'd the Speedo go? Sub-mystery. It was the items in his pocket. Those were the only things that he chose to keep. No passport, no phone, no credit cards. Found in his pockets were a watch, a packet of German tissues, and a small bar of soap, not from any hotel in Ireland. It's interesting how that they could tell that. No, that one is not. It's not from here. I've never seen one like it. The guards kept the men bodies. The Gardaí, the guards. It was a misprint. The guards kept the man's body for 3 months in the hopes that some family member would come forward. But eventually he was put to rest. The state stepped in, providing a plot, and covered the cost of the funeral. There was one other unidentified body underneath him, and the plot can take 3. Ooh. Isn't that hairy? But there was nobody to go on top in case they did find out who he was. They could dig up his remains and repatriate the bones to wherever he came from. There's a small wooden cross, but it's not for him. It's for the person who was underneath him. How do they do that? In this state, New York State, you must be buried in a vault, what they call a vault. It's not always above ground. It's what they call the concrete box they build that they put the casket in. And in this state, if you're buried, you have to go into a vault. And then now it says Gardaí again. Gardaí circulated the man's DNA profile and pictures to the Interpol system, but nothing has flagged. They also made public appeals in Austrian and German publications in an attempt to find out his identity. 16 years on from the mysterious unaliving, the man is still unidentified, with no relatives or friends coming forward. No wonder he felt like that, right? A little somber. Thank you, Tina Tomaszewski, for coming by. Love seeing you, Tina. Thanks to everyone who came this evening. I love you guys. Catch the show on Wednesday morning. Until then, may God bless and protect you all.